Hello, welcome back to Specialness. It's a very special edition with an impromptu topic as we recently heard from the Social Security Administration. So not only do we have an update, we have a few opinions that we'll be sharing.
We have some strong opinions.
We do. So I want to point out a few things. First of all, we do have a new candle.
We do.
We have had a non-existent candle for a few episodes here, and certainly apologize for the lack of ambiance, but we have now filled that out. Second of all, I am wearing my Fight Club shirt today, not just because it's a great film, but because I'm feeling pretty feisty right now.
Yeah.
After receiving notification from the Social Security Administration. Just to kind of reset here before we get into this. Let's back up. We talked in season 1 about our experience with Social Security, and how we had applied, and then we were rejected, and then we filed an appeal about a year ago.
Right.
And after, and I believe at the time we did the episode when we talked about Social Security, we had said, hey, from what we understand, we're on step 3 of 5. We've got no other communication other than that. We also pointed out that this is not something people are misconstruing here. This is not from Washington. This is from Austin, as each state determines Social Security, in our case SSI, for people. So this is a state issue that we're talking about.
Correct.
I believe we talked about that. It's been a few months, since we talked it over. So we have waited. We're on 2 years,
Just
basically.
have it 2 years, yes.
We submit something, they take a year to respond, to tell us that we don't get it. We appeal. Now, a year later, we have been notified. This was hilarious. So we received those mailings 4 days ago. 5 days ago. It was a Saturday.
Yeah.
There were 3 different letters. One was saying that we needed to let them know that we were okay going through a mental health assessment that would be virtual.
Right.
And by the way, if we weren't okay with that, then they would just determine we didn't need it. So it wasn't really asking us if we were okay. It was just telling us we needed to do it. We also needed to let them know that we were okay with that by Sunday, April 27th.
Correct.
The
next day.
Which was the next day. Also, their offices are not open on a Sunday, so I couldn't have mailed it anyway. So I had to run out to a FedEx Kinko's where a fax machine exists because it's not 1993, and fax them this, notification that we were okay with that on Sunday. So that it was there on the right date at like $3 a page or something insane. And then the other 2, which we're going to read selections from today.
Well, the other, the second one, we had to sign because they wanted our permission, which, hold on.
What was the letter asking?
For them to get Cason's medical records from his other doctors.
Which we have given them.
We have already signed.
Right. Not only have we already signed that, we have given them those medical records.
The ones that are relevant.
Right, the ones that are relevant.
The big ones and stuff. Yeah.
So it was that HIPAA form we had to sign, right?
For them to,
Right. That's due by Friday.
May 2nd.
May 2nd, again, less than a week after we received it. That's not a big deal. It's a big deal because we've already done it.
And they already have the record.
And they already have it. So I don't know why they think they're going to get something new.
Right.
But, okay. But the other thing we were requested to do was a Form 3373.
Mm-hmm.
Now, this is the form where they ask a lot of questions about how your disability is affecting your life and where you live.
And I think it's called like the adult function.
The adult function form. Yes.
Yeah.
Now, ironically, we filled this out when it was called the Form 3380.
Back 2 years ago.
2 years ago. We also clarified it when we filed our appeal.
Right.
But now, let's say, because it's no longer called a Form 3380, we had to fill it out again so that they would have the Form 3373, which, in their defense, is a different form because although it's all the same questions, they're in a slightly different order.
Yeah, and formatted just a
And
little
formatted slightly differently.
bit. Right.
But essentially, it's the same information that
Right.
they want again.
Right.
Again, we've already filled this out twice, but they want it again for the appeals process.
Right.
Okay, so that gives everyone that we're caught up now on what we're dealing with here. The short of it is we've now been asked to fill something out for the third time. We are 2 years into the process, and they gave, after a year in between communication, they have given us 1 day to 6 days to respond.
And if we don't do it by those 2 dates, they throw out.
The letter is very clear that they may determine his needs based on our inability to respond accordingly.
Right. And for those that don't know much about applying to begin with for SSI, it's a process in itself. I mean, we have forms. Like a packet of like this thick, and it comes with a checklist, and it is very in-depth. It took us a long time to fill out, a lot of details. Then you have to do banking information. I mean, it's not something you can just sit down and mail it in. I mean, it's an ordeal. That was round 1.
That's round 1.
And then with round 2, which we're going to go over a little bit more detailed of why we appealed.
After seeing
Those
after they read our medical records, they required us to go see their own medical specialists.
right, which we talked about in that one episode.
Which we went over that hilarious stand-up routine before and how unqualified those individuals were.
Right. And the letter we got back from SSI after Cason met with these two of their doctors, that letter said, based on their findings, Cason does not qualify or does not need SSI.
Any.
He
needs no assistance.
No assistance whatsoever.
Because he is capable of living independently
And holding a full-time job.
holding a full-time job.
Right.
Now, we're going to read select responses from both of those doctors over a year ago.
Right.
As well as some of the questions on the form.
Right.
Yeah. So, in case any of you are confused, you should be. And in case any of you are wondering, yes, we're frustrated and a little put out. Because, again, we're not doing this because we desperately need the $900 or $400 a month or whatever they give based on the level you are. It's really to get him set up so that he has a safety net from a health insurance perspective, so that he's on Medicaid, so that no doctor in the state will take it.
Right. Yeah. Right.
So,
if something happened to you and I.
Right.
Because he right now is on our insurance.
Right.
But if you and I weren't here, that would be a huge problem for him. So this is for him. This is not a benefit for you and me. This is not going to help you and me.
No.
This is for Cason. Right?
Yes.
And
And that's, it's not that it won't help financially. It will a little, but ultimately we're doing this so he has a safety net in case something happens to us.
right.
Okay.
Which is okay.
Yeah. So here we are. We're gonna now we're gonna officially begin. Let the hilarity ensue.
Okay. So we might have talked a little bit about. I know I told the story of going to see these doctors in another episode and how, but I don't think we read any of the actual words from the report from
Which doctor? We have both. Which are you starting
This is
with?
not the psychologist. This is just
So this is the general practitioner doctor.
yes.
Okay.
Okay, so this is the report we get mailed to us from Social Security with their denial.
With the denial.
The denial letter. Okay, so I'm not going to read the whole thing.
Now, again, just for clarification, these are all the reasons why he doesn't need assistance, right? Okay.
Right. Well, and not even the thing was the most frustrating about this particular report is that the information's not even correct.
No, we went over that. We went over the
not-
fact that they don't have the right medications written. They have quotes that he said that aren't accurate.
So they're basically saying that SSI made their decision if Cason needs benefits or not based on lies.
Well, at best, inaccurate information. And in all honesty, there are comments on there that, to me, don't read. Well, you'll
Okay,
see.
yeah.
You'll see. Okay.
Okay, so for one, and this is kind of, like I said, I'm not going to read the whole thing. But as I've mentioned, and in fact, we talked about it in last week's episode with Cason having chest pain, right? When he exercises.
Which he's had for years.
Several years, and we've been trying to figure out what the root cause is.
Right.
This doctor says he denies frequent chest pain.
First of all, that is... Now, this is where I start to have a problem with okay, we're going to take him in another room and we're going to talk to him.
Mm-hmm.
First of all, we are his legal guardians. According to the state of Texas, we are his legal guardians. The fact that we are denied an opportunity to at least hear what is
they're
being
asking.
said
Yep.
is, to me, tantamount to fraud, because we have no way of justifying or corroborating anything that is said.
No, because Cason doesn't understand.
Cason doesn't understand most things that are being asked of him, and B, he can't lie. There's no way he would have responded saying he didn't have chest pain.
Right, because he has chest pain.
Right.
Then this is the one that you and I, when we read it, we were like, I can't even believe it. This doctor states that Cason, quote, said, "I am mentally weak, but physically strong." Now,
Look, I know none of you have met Cason. I know he hasn't been on the podcast. I know you haven't heard him talk. But I can tell you, he does not know how to put those words together in a sentence.
no. And I am mentally weak
He would never say he'd never say the word weak anyway.
or mentally.
Those are not words he would use.
No.
He would say, I need help with some things. And he would probably say he's strong, but he would not say physically strong.
No. Or he would say my brain is broken, or my
Right.
brain doesn't work. Again, Cason would never have said
So
that.
look, maybe that's nitpicking. Maybe maybe that doctor's writing that down as sort of a summary of what he said.
No, because he said the patient states, in quotes.
Yeah, okay. But
So-
look, if anyone here is questioning, well, maybe we're being too nitpicky, just wait, because it gets better.
He also wrote he lives only with his mother, even though I
That's just inaccurate.
specifically
Right.
told him.
He lives with his family because he has a brother and he has a father that live in the house.
He left out, he says he's also under the care of endocrinology, neurology, and immunology. Left out half of the other doctors Cason sees.
Well, he certainly left out cardiology, which is
And psychiatry
which is the big reason we're applying.
and liver doctor. He left out most of it.
Right.
This, again, he's able to perform all personal hygiene tasks without any difficulty.
Again, I don't know where he is getting that, because he hasn't ever watched Cason do those things. Now, if you ask Cason, can you brush your teeth? He's going to say, yes, I can brush my teeth. What he's not going to say is, I do need to be reminded to brush my teeth.
Right.
He's going to, if you're asked, hey, can you shower by yourself? He's going to say, sure, I can shower by myself. I shower every morning. He's not going to tell you that he has to be woken up, told to get in the shower, and sometimes reminded to get out of the shower.
And that we had to buy a $10,000 walk-in handicap.
Basically a handicapped disabled shower so that he can, because of his neuropathy, so that he won't injure himself in the shower.
Right. He doesn't shave by himself. He uses an electric razor that we
have to shave him. And if we didn't say, come over here so we can shave your face, he would never think to do it.
No, he wouldn't. Same with like cleaning his glasses.
He cannot clean his glasses.
Right.
He brings it to us so we can spray Windex on it and do it with a paper towel because he cannot physically manipulate his shirt to do this. Mm-hmm. This is too much hand-eye coordination that he cannot motor plan for.
Right. So again, he is not able to perform all tasks.
No.
Personal hygiene.
Unassisted.
Right. His mother states he has difficulty with employment and is having a hard time finding a job.
Okay, let's delve into that because at the time we had specifically never looked for a job
until at the time he's never looked for a job.
We had made a decision after he turned 18 that there was no point in looking for a job because we've heard about all the rules that once you get on Social Security you can't earn any money.
Right.
So we were like, well, Cason, first of all, Cason's not ready for a job.
No, that's what I was going to say.
Because he's done job training at My Possibilities, but at the time, he was not ready for a job.
And he was
not asking to get a job. And we were like, we made the stupid assumption of thinking that once we applied for Social Security, we would get it, and then we would worry about whether or not he could work and how much he earned. But the point is, he has never looked for a job, so he's not having trouble.
He's never looked.
Yeah. We never would have said that.
No.
So this isn't about a person who can get a job and not hold it. This isn't about a person who is looking for a job and can't get one.
Right.
This is a person who has never looked for a job because they are not capable of having most jobs.
Exactly. And his priority and our priority was after high school, he was going to go into a day program.
Yes.
That's his
That was always the plan.
Yeah, this has nothing to do with him having any, and the fact that he said he has difficulty with employment. He's never had a job to.
He's never had a job defined difficult.
Yeah. I mean, it's.
So that's somewhere between inaccurate and a lie.
Right.
Or a misunderstanding because, as we said, the doctor didn't speak English as a first language.
Oh, he understood.
Well, either way,
Just. So then, again, this is the report that supposedly SSI based their decision on. So far, what we've mentioned, most of it's completely inaccurate, and this is their decision.
Right.
So then you get down to the medications. He listed only, 5 medicines.
Despite you were told you had to bring all the medicine to the appointment in the original bottles. You lined them out for him.
I had to line them up alphabetically.
Of which there are, I don't even know how many. There's 12, 15.
I had to bring his Hizentra infusions. We had to bring everything.
So he did not annotate all of the medication. In fact, he probably didn't annotate 30% of it.
Well, and he added 2 that Cason doesn't even take. There are 2 medicines listed that Cason doesn't even take and never has taken.
Okay, so it's inaccurate and incomplete.
The fact he has Cason's gabapentin listed, that's the only medicine that he has the correct name and dosing. The next one, he has Cason's Lamictal on there, but he only has 1 of the 3 doses listed. The other 2, Cason doesn't take and has never taken. And then his...
Do they sound similar to something he takes?
One of them does, but the other one doesn't. Okay. And he has his lithium listed, but he's on 2 different doses of lithium. Right. He only listed 1 of them, and he only says he takes the lithium 450 once a day, which is inaccurate.
That's like 1/3 of what he takes.
He doesn't, the schizophrenia medicine, Clozaril, which is allowed Cason to function the way he's functioning now, not even listed.
Right.
Cason's Hizentra, his
immune therapy,
not even listed.
Right.
Again, I don't understand how that is. It's just not even, it doesn't even make any sense to me. Then he comes down to the medicines Cason's allergic to. He only has 1 out of the 2 that I told him. And I had to tell him, I'm not kidding you. I think I repeated that maybe in the other episode. Literally, he's asking me, what is he allergic to? And I said, amantadine and geodon. Mm-hmm. What? Amantadine and geodon. I told him over and over. He only listed amantadine. Didn't even put geodon on there.
All right.
Then you get, there's other stuff. And then he gets to the medical history. He leaves off Cason's genetic deletion of the 15q25.2.
And I'm positive that's because he had no idea what that is.
100%. Yeah. Even though he had the information.
Even though he had the genetic report stating it.
Right. He does not list neuropathy. He doesn't list...
For which he takes gabapentin, which was the only medicine he got right.
Exactly. Did not mention his immunodeficiency, nor did he mention, which he takes medicine for, the 2 skin conditions.
Right.
The HS and the keratoderma. Those 2 things were listed, takes medicine for. He doesn't mention it.
So, by the way, in the appeal, we did go and list all the medicine.
And say, and called out the fact that this doctor got it all wrong.
Right.
Like, didn't even list it and added medicine he doesn't take.
And then we were denied again.
And then, well, we haven't yet been denied.
Right.
We've had to give them more information.
Right, yeah.
Then he goes over Cason's system reviews. Cardiovascular, no chest pain. Psychiatric, denies suicidal ideation.
Cason doesn't even know what suicide is.
No. Pulmonary.
So again, if you ask him, do you have ideas of suicide? Cason isn't going to say no.
Right.
He's going to say, I don't know what that is.
Right. Pulmonary, he said he has shortness of breath.
Which is true.
Skin, negative.
He has 2 skin conditions.
You look at Cason's, the hidradenitis, whatever that word is, the HS, he has scarring on him from that.
Yes.
And his skin is ridiculously dry.
Yes.
He says it's fine. GI, no issues. Even though I showed him, he's a liver doctor. Mm-hmm. He takes reflux medicine because he has really bad reflux twice a day. And he takes high-dose Colace because he's constipated. But according to this doctor, everything's fine. Neurologic, negative. No neurologic symptoms.
Negative for neurologic symptoms.
He has neuropathy.
He has neuropathy for which he takes gabapentin.
Yes. Then you get down to the physical examination, and this I know is probably a typo, but the fact that it's a typo that Social Security is looking at.
Yeah, this can be easily written off as this was just a clerical error.
Right.
But his blood pressure was listed as 20/70.
20/70.
20/70, not 120.
Right.
20.
And I might have mentioned before, when he was doing Cason's blood pressure, which you're not supposed to do, it was the blood pressure cuff was up higher on the wall, so Cason had to have his arm raised to put the cuff on.
Because he didn't have a cuff that would move. It's so rinky-dink.
You're not supposed to, when you get your blood pressure.
You're supposed to have it down anyway.
Yeah, you're not supposed to have your arm raised, and you inflate the. He literally went puff puff and took it off. So I was sitting there watching, going, "That's not even an accurate."
Well, he was clearly going through this like it was a formality.
Yeah.
And here's the thing I would say about, well, if that was just a simple clerical error. Well, what if it had been 220/70?
He would have. Yeah.
Either way, it's inaccurate, and it's incompetent.
Right. So, under mood and affect,
which is that's the base level here. This is the main reason.
Well, he said that Cason was alert in no respiratory distress.
Well, I can believe he was alert, but what does respiratory distress have to do
with his mood?
Yeah, that
has absolutely nothing to do.
I didn't go to medical school, but I don't know what the connection between those two things is.
He also has no suicidal ideation.
We noted that twice? Okay, good.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah. Then he goes through, it talks about the skin again, and it says no rash, skin is negative, which we just went over and said that's a lie.
Which, again, he might not have had it at the time he went.
No, not the rash.
He may not have had a rash, but the records are there.
You can see the scars. Yeah. But it's all, he doesn't have a skin issue according to this doctor. Then you get to his range of motion and stuff like that. Well, Cason, we've talked about with the neuropathy in his feet, all of his toes curl.
They're clawing.
Yeah. And he does not have, he can't flex his feet up.
Right.
And that's been that way since the neuropathy started. And that's why we talked about in another episode, we tried to get him to wear these fitted orthotic braces that were extremely painful because he has to keep them. Because when they do range of motion tests, which they do all the time at the neuromuscular doctor, they're trying to get it to be able to do this. Well, he can't do it. According to this doctor, Cason's, all his flexions and all that stuff is completely fine in both the right and left ankle, and he has no pain on full flexion.
That's impossible.
It's impossible. Again, this is what Social Security is basing their decision on.
Again, no doctor who looked at those things specifically when we took him in for those symptoms noted that.
Right. On motor strength and under neurologic, it says that he is able to perform all gross and fine motor movements. Cason,
he can't motor plan to clean his glasses with his T-shirt.
Right. He can't button.
He cannot button an Oxford shirt.
Nope.
He has a difficulty buttoning his pants. He can't put a belt on.
He can't. He struggles tying shoes.
Laces
have to be big. They can't be small laces.
Right.
He has been seen in OT for fine motor pretty much his whole life.
Since he's been getting occupational therapy for fine motor since he was 5?
3.5.
Yeah, I mean, come on. 20 years.
He's like, he can grasp, manipulate, button, or unbutton.
Was he wearing clothes that day that would button or unbutton?
No.
Because I know what he wears every day.
Yeah,
he was wearing a T-shirt and some shorts, some athletic shorts.
Pants on.
Yeah, there was no buttons or snaps.
There was no button. And he didn't have them untie or tie his shoe. So again, that's a complete lie. Then he gets down to reflexes and says Cason has all reflexes in extremities. Cason doesn't have reflexes.
He has no reflexes in his knees. Yep.
Knees down.
Because of the neuropathy.
That
he takes gabapentin for.
And the reflexes in his upper arms they're there, but they're, I don't know what the term was, like delayed.
Yeah, they're delayed. Like his reaction comes way later than it should. Right.
So he says all that's all completely normal. He also says Cason was able to sit throughout the whole duration of the interview. And he's able to use objects in his right hand, and he signed the paperwork with that right hand. I signed the paperwork.
Cason doesn't sign anything because he will tell you, my mommy or daddy has to sign that because they're my guardian.
Right. I signed everything.
Right. He never signed anything.
No. He says he signed it. He has no slurred speech. And is able to speak without any problems.
I mean, again, I'm going to put this back on that he spoke English as a second language and just doesn't recognize when people have a speech impediment speaking English. I mean, if you listen to Cason talk, he struggles with certain words, sounds. First of all, he's not always processing fast enough to say exactly what he thinks. He gets hung up on certain consonant plosives. He stutters. I mean,
yeah.
And it doesn't matter what mood he's in. If he's excited, he stutters. If he's calm, he stutters. If he's upset, he stutters. Stutters.
He stutters and he pronounces words wrong, and no slurred speech? Yeah, he does. I mean, that is a complete...
That's a complete
utter lie. Said his gait is steady and has no balance issues.
Okay.
If you
I'll give you the benefit of the doubt on this. If you ask him to walk 6 feet,
he can walk straight.
He can walk 6 feet straight.
But ask, okay, Cason, how do you handle walking on uneven ground? How do you handle walking downstairs? Or if you have to walk upstairs and it's dark out, can you see where you're walking? Cason has to look down. Mm-hmm. Cason's balance isn't great. He cannot do the stand on one leg test. It's all part of the neuropathy. When you don't feel your extremities, you're gonna have balance issues. Mm-hmm. But according to him, it's all good. He also said Cason can do the heel-toe walking fine, which is when it's a neurological test where you literally have to get on your heels and then walk up to your toes.
I don't believe that.
He can't do it because he can do it a little bit. That is a test the neurologists and the neuromuscular doctors do every time they see him.
Right.
He can do it a little bit, but Cason's first words when they ask him to do it is, this is hard for him, and he has to do it barefoot if they do which I know this doctor didn't have Cason take
his shoes off.
Because that's because you can do it easier in tennis shoes, right? Because he has it's a grip and it's got padding and stuff. But when you do it with no shoes on, which is the way the neuromuscular doctors do it, he's having to do that. He doesn't have the flexion to do that. Yeah. So his is starting from, instead of like heel toe, it's more like halfway.
Yep.
He can't get up on his toes like that.
Bottom line is he can't do it.
No, can't do it. And then he ends the whole report saying that his mother drove him to the evaluation today.
At least that's true.
That's true. And that it only took 10 minutes to get there.
But I don't know what the hell that has to do with anything.
What does that have to do with anything? And it didn't take 10 minutes to get there, first of all. But what does that have to do with Cason getting Social Security?
That has nothing to do with his health.
No. Nothing whatsoever. Okay, so
that's the medical doctor.
That's the medical. And
which, God bless you if that's your doctor and you're trying to get something solved, because now I will say,
didn't we just get a letter from Blue Cross saying that he is no longer?
He's no longer.
I think he's no longer practicing or something. Yeah. Well, I wonder why.
Yeah.
And again, I think we've talked about this before. Both of these doctors work for, get paid,
Well, this guy.
They both do.
His whole practice was only Social Security.
I think hers is too. So I don't know if they're getting the amount of, like if they get a kickback or something for let's deny as many as you can get.
I don't think you'll get anyone to tell you that that's true.
No, I'm not saying that's true, but neither one of them, I can tell you right now, there's a reason why they're working for Social Security as doctors and they don't have their own big thriving practice.
Right.
Well,
how about just their own thriving practice or just their own practice?
Their own practice.
Just a practice.
Yeah, let's just set up somewhere and not know what they're doing.
I'd be interested to know what this doctor is doing now.
I don't know. I really don't know. Okay, so we already talked a lot about this doctor, the psychologist. She's the one that we go in, and again, she has all the records. Cason's had like,
and there are more records from his psychiatrist than any other doctor.
And his neuropsych evals that he had. Remember, we had just had
multiple
ones.
evals.
And in order to get guardianship at 18, he had one, 6 months before he turned 18. Mm-hmm. It's consistent. They're all consistent. They all say the same thing. His IQ gets a little bit worse each time because he gets older and it's the way it's scaled, but it says the same thing. He has autism. He has learning disabilities. He's intellectually disabled. He doesn't do this. He has dyslexia. He has dysgraphia. He has schizoaffective. They all say the same thing.
Yes.
So when we get there and she says, oh, well, you need to do an IQ test, and it was a quick IQ test and a, what was it? I don't remember what it's called, but kind of see where he is reading and math and stuff. And I'm like, you have all of this.
We just did that.
We just did it?
Yeah.
You have all the information. Well, but Social Security needs it. And so then we sit.
And I'm sure that's true.
Yeah.
I'm sure they need their doctor
to say.
give their test.
Right.
Which, again, being simple means it's short and probably pretty easy to determine that someone's IQ is above 80.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. We talked about how she didn't have the best. Neither one of these doctors had any really bedside manner whatsoever. But she was the one that was asking all kinds of questions and was like, "You couldn't have kids."
Yeah,
she was kind of
getting a little personal.
Yeah, and I was like, "What is?"
Again, I don't know what that has to do with whether.
Yeah,
or not
and then
he's disabled.
when she said, "Oh, he's adopted. Who didn't want him?" And he's sitting right beside me.
Yeah.
And I was like, he was very wanted. Well, who in your family gave him up? And I'm like, he is not related to us genetically. And she was just kind of giving me the look like, what? And I had to explain all that. And then when she was like, well, when did he get the genetic disorder? Remember that comment? And I was like, well, he was born with it. We didn't find out about it until such and such age and stuff. But she just was like, well, I've never heard of this genetic disorder. And I said, yeah, you know what? Most people have it.
Yeah. Doesn't mean it's not real.
Right. You can look it up. It's all in his medical records. And then she basically says to me, again, I'm the legal guardian, but she's like, you can leave and I'm going to test.
Yeah, again, I have to do this independent without you in the room.
Right. Which in his other neuropsych evals, I'm not in the room. But here's the thing. I know those doctors. I don't know this lady at all.
And the difference is those doctors are trying to solve a problem where this doctor is trying to prove that he has no problem.
Exactly.
Yeah, there's an agenda.
Wholeheartedly. Yeah. So I was like, why? No, I want to stay. You can't. And if you are gonna be defiant and stuff, I'll just tell Social Security, And I was like, oh my gosh. And Cason was all worried and don't leave. And she goes, it'll only be 30 minutes. But remember, it ended up being like an hour and a half.
It was a lot longer.
Because I know Cason. He isn't gonna do.
He has a hard time understanding things that are being asked of him.
And he's not gonna do a cognitive IQ test in 30 minutes. He's not going to because it's hard. So I'm not going to go over all the results on that. But what I did want to
just the final comments.
The fact that his grade equivalent was between grade 2 and 3.
On the top, what were the topics? Math, reading, and what was the other one?
Spelling, English.
Spelling. Okay.
Yeah, English. So
they graded out as second or third grade in all of them.
Math was the highest.
Okay.
Reading, spelling was second grade.
Okay.
And she even basically says in here, he functions around a second grader.
She says that in the report, that he functions at around a second grade level.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. She says he has lapses in concentration, especially with auditory stimuli.
That's true.
He can use a pencil and paper, but his work rate is much slower than normal.
And again, he was denied based on this report.
Right. What does that say? Stutters.
Okay.
Because she talks about his speech, and she goes, he stutters some, especially when under pressure. So she says that. He says he's no slurred speech.
And I'd
stuttering.
like to know a definition of pressure, because for Cason, pressure is you need to do this in 1 minute.
Right.
That's pressure.
Yeah. He may need assistance to manage the workplace environment.
Okay,
and that's how she ends her report.
The fact that she said he may need, I think, was pretty key.
Yep.
First of all, if he's operating on a second grade level, works slowly, and isn't good under pressure,
and slurs,
and has all these other things going on, he will require help in the workplace. Mm-hmm. But I think because she wrote may, to me, that's a word they're looking for, and so they just, they go with that. They ignore everything else.
And they find one word to say.
Well, I think more to the point, and I know that we're getting a snoot full of, hey, the reason we're cutting Social Security is because there's so much fraud out there. And I'm not saying there's not fraud, but we have been going through this for 2 years. Nothing has changed. Nothing we have reported has changed. The reports even say things that to me dictate that they require this, and we're still getting denied.
Right.
So we're just going to, I'm livid over this.
Right.
And I'm trying to figure out how anyone at the state level, wherever they are, can read those reports, can take a look at the medical records, and ascertain that he can live independently and hold a job.
Mm-hmm. And if that's happening to Cason,
right,
it's happening to a lot of other.
And I think that that's something. So, getting to the crux of this is, sure, we wanted to share this with everybody because this is part of the experience we're going through, and I know a lot of people can relate to this. But some things that we have talked about as a result of this that I think are very things that people need to hear. First of all, if you don't have your own special needs child, but you know someone who does, or someone in your family is dealing with something like this, you need to understand how easy of a target this group of people is.
Population is.
This population that can't fight for themselves, that are easily told, well, you should be able to, and it's just easy to deny them. If you apply for Social Security and you're 62, it takes days. Right now, with the Social Security Administration having 40% of their workforce cut, you can get it like that purely based on your age.
Yep.
So apparently they think all the fraud is here.
Right.
It's the people who aren't 62
right.
that are looking to accomplish this. And while I understand on a base level, if you are ignorant to this community and you say, this person's 23 years old, they're just lazy. This has to be a lie. I don't see how you can look at a medical report this thick and just think we made it all up.
Or that the parents are just trying to get money. They're trying to scam the system. And again, it's
$10,000 a year.
Right.
Yeah.
It's $900 a month.
If you get the highest level.
Well, I think it's actually a little more, like $942
or
something.
Or whatever. But the point is, this is not a lot of money.
This isn't a lot of money. And I said this the other day, that this population it's an easy target to deny. It's an easy target to withdraw funds, which is happening in this population, because if Social Security was being cut among everyone that's over 65, there would be an uproar. People would be so angry and being like, no. But this population, because it's not a ton of people. I mean, take that back. There is a lot of people with special needs that are on SSI.
The number is high, but the percentage is low.
Right, compared to those 62 or 65 and older, right? This is the kind of crap that we have to deal with as special needs families, because it's this kind of stuff that gets, it falls to the cracks, and people don't need to know about it. People don't know about it because, again, if you don't have a special needs child, adult, you don't know about this stuff. No. You don't know that you have to apply for guardianship and pay the lawyer and every year renew it by a certain date. And getting with the guardianship, Social Security has to have an updated guardianship form for Cason, right?
Or it stalls the process.
Not even that. It means you and I can't call them.
Right.
And get any information because Cason's over 18, ma'am, and he's an adult, and I can't speak with you.
Yep.
Well,
and because their process goes slow, this will be the third guardianship paper we've had to turn in.
The first time we sent it in with his form, and it was good. But last year, his guardianship expires in June of every year, and I called, sat on hold, and this whole rigmarole, trying to say, and I did it before his guardianship expired because I knew they weren't going to talk to me. And I got through finally to a lady, and I said, I need to update, going through the SSI process, I need to update my son's guardianship. And I said, can I mail it? Or she goes, no, you need to come to the office and give it to us in person. It has to be the original.
Right.
They have to make the copy.
Yeah.
So what did I do? I went and spent 3 hours at the SSI office waiting. I'm telling you, if we don't have an answer by June, I'm going to have to go and find a Social Security office that's open that I'm not going to have to wait 8+ hours at, so I can hand them a copy of Cason's original guardianship forms, which they have on file, by the way. And when I went last summer and I waited and waited, there's only 3 people working the windows, and I wait my turn, I get the number, I call, I go up, and the lady was like, "What do you need help with?" And I said, "I need to update my son's guardianship papers." And she looks at me, she goes, "Yeah, that's not my job." Shut her window, and she goes, "Go sit back out there, your number's going back in the queue." What? So I had to wait another hour, and I get this other guy, go up to him, and he was thankfully very nice, but he was like, "What can I help you with, ma'am?" And I'm like, well, and I told him, and he goes, "Well, okay, yes, I can take those, and I need to make a copy of your originals." And I'm like, "Okay." And then he goes and makes the copy, hands them back to me, and he was like, "I'm not sure what I'm supposed to do with these copies." God. And I look at him and I said, "Well, it's probably not a good idea just to leave them on your desk. Somehow you're going to need to scan." I'm telling him this. "You need to probably scan them and get them in Cason's file." "Well, okay, ma'am, I'll leave them here, and I'll talk to my supervisor, later, just to make sure what we need to do." I don't know. And then I said, "And while I'm here with you, can you tell me what the status is?" Because at this point, it had been like a month or so since we filed our appeal. And I told him, I said, "We have appealed. Our son was denied SSI. We have appealed." I said, "Can you let me know the status?" And he was like, "Yeah, let me look into that for you." And it just says processing.
Mm-hmm. No information.
No information. So.
Well, I can tell you something else that's going to happen. When we do this virtual meeting, I'm recording it.
I think that's a great.
I'm going to record the meeting. I'm pretty sure that if I ask them to record it and send me a copy, that won't happen.
No.
I'm pretty sure they will tell me that they're not allowed to record it, but I am sure as hell going to have my phone recording it.
Yeah, but this mental eval telehealth.
Now, this woman spent an hour and a half with him physically.
Yeah.
And we're going to get on a 10-minute mental health call where a guy's going to say, "Can he go to the bathroom by himself?"
I don't know what they're going to ask.
Yeah, I mean,
I don't know if, I think you and I were talking about this the other day. I don't know if they're going to say, "This needs to be just with Cason," or you and I are going to be present.
Well, I can tell you right now, if it's virtual and the screen is this, we're going to be there.
Oh, yeah.
They may not see us, but we'll be there.
Right. But I don't know what I can't imagine what they're trying to get from Cason. They want to see him again. This would be the 3rd person from SSI to look at him. I don't know. I just don't understand.
And again, I mentioned this when we talked about this last year. If they approve us, and it's been 2 years, and they owe $18,000
because it's back pay.
Because they got to pay for back pay that goes back to when we first applied. You don't get it all up front.
Nope.
They cannot give you more than half of what they owe you in a calendar year.
It was like every 3 months they can only give you like
1 month or a month.
2 months.
Yeah, so it's
stupid rules.
So basically, I believe if I did the math right, if we were to get approved after 2 years, Cason would start to get his benefit, but the reimbursement would take 4 years to get.
No, it was like 7. It was like 7 years. It was some ungodly number. We're like, this is so dumb.
It was 8.
Because if they're just not wanting to pay, it doesn't matter. They're still going to end up having to pay us. Right. And if they wait 4 years to approve them, they're going to have to back pay us 4 years.
But there's no interest.
Right.
There's no penalties.
Right.
Everything that happens if I don't pay my taxes doesn't happen with money that they owe Cason.
Right.
And let's get that damn straight. It's not our money.
It's Cason's.
It's Cason's money. Right. So now we have to figure out, and you got to account for every penny of it.
And we have to charge him rent.
And we have to charge him rent. And we have to be, we have to say, hey, if he can't pay his rent, we're kicking him out.
Kicking him out, yeah. Because that's what we do.
Yeah.
And his groceries have to be paid through that. Everything has to be separate. And I mean,
look, the bottom line is getting SSI benefits, and I'm not, I'm willingly admitting that it does provide. I'm not saying it doesn't provide some financial benefit.
Right.
It does, and for some families, it's probably critical. Okay. But the reality is, whether you need the money or you don't need the money, it's a pain in the ass to execute it. It's a pain in the ass to account for everything. And then when, like, people we know are getting a random letter saying, they get a letter dated April 8th saying your benefits are terminated May 1
or May 25th,
because you chose not to seek other forms of income. When the rules say you're not allowed to make income, it's like a kangaroo court.
And they've been on Social Security. Their daughter's been on Social Security for 10 years and stuff. And it's happening, I think we said it last week, it's happening all the time in the special needs community.
So even if we do get approved, and even if it takes years to get the reimbursements, literally any day we could lose them.
We can get a letter saying, as of such and such date, Cason's benefits go from $900 to $0 because you did not look into other sources of income or whatever.
You filed a receipt incorrectly or whatever.
They're just finding ways right and left to, and again, they're going after this population because if they were doing this to everyone 65 and older, there'd be an uproar.
There would be a massive uproar.
But it's happening. I see it all the time with people I know that they're adult children, are on SSI, and they're just randomly getting these letters, and then they're having to contact people. It's just so frustrating.
It's amazing how, because this process has taken 2 years, I get worked up thinking about it like in the moment. Like I got to go fax stuff to Austin or whatever. While we're waiting, I'm not as obsessed with it. It's not the front of my mind. But last night, Cason he had an opportunity to put some of his job skills to work, and he assisted at an event for the North Texas Autism Awareness Association.
I think so.
And he was just there to help serve food, And
through a buffet. Him and some other MP responsibilities.
He had to dress in all black like he was a waiter or whatever. He was there like 2 hours, and so he got a chance to do that, and he was very proud of himself, and that's great. Of course, he had adult supervision because it's required, because he needs it. Because if you just said to him, "Hey, you want to go help serve food at a buffet?" He's not going to go, "Yeah, that sounds like fun." He's going to say, "What's a buffet? What do I have to do? How do I do that? I don't know how to do that. I'm worried I'll make a mistake. I drop everything." Okay, point made. But the thing is, he had to change clothes into clothes he doesn't normally wear, what he calls Christmas clothes.
Yeah,
right?
Nice clothes.
Nice clothes.
Yeah.
So he had to wear a button-up shirt. He had to wear like slacks. And dress shoes. Well, I had to button his shirt.
Yep.
I had to get his pants attached, which was hard for him because he doesn't have the motor skills to suck in his stomach, and he's got a bit of a belly because of some of the medication he takes. You had
to tuck in his shirt.
I had to tuck his shirt in for him because he doesn't know he can't figure out how to do that. I had to put his belt on for him. I had to tie his shoes for him. Mm-hmm. We had to take him over there to meet the individual from MP who was going to take the few of them that were doing this to that event. I mean, we might as well have worked the event.
Right. And then when we get home, he needed help. He couldn't undo the buttons.
He couldn't get undressed.
Can't do undo the cuffs. And he did take the belt off, but he needed his shoes untied. And he's 23 years old.
Mm-hmm.
And to be having to fight this battle this hard.
And again, he's not complaining.
No.
He's not frustrated that he can't do those things. He is fully self-aware that not only he can't do them, he needs help to do them.
Right.
And so he asks.
Yeah. Daddy,
Can you help? Can you help me with this belt? Which means I need you to do my belt.
yeah. Daddy, can you?
It's not where I go over and say, I'm going to put it through this loop. No, you do the rest.
Right.
He can't do it.
Yeah. We've worked with him.
Yes.
The OTs
have worked with him. So you're telling me a guy who can't effectively put on a belt is ready to live on his own and have a job.
Yeah. Doesn't need any help from the state. Doesn't need any help. He's able to figure it out himself.
And again, I know that Cason is better off than some people who also can't qualify for Social Security.
Yeah, we're not alone in this.
No.
This is not just a isolated thing. This is...
And again, I don't, some people who watch this aren't in Texas, and I don't know how it works in other states. I don't know how hard it is.
Not like it is here.
I can't imagine it's as hard because, when we hear about benefits from the states and people reach out, they say, oh, it was great. I got that within 30 days, within 60 days or whatever. And we talked about how the benefits work in Texas, and the waiting list is 23 years long. And getting longer because they keep cutting money out of it.
Right. And when you and I finally got to go away for a long weekend in the fall, which was the third time in 30 years you and I have gone somewhere, and it was in Colorado, and our Uber driver happened to have a special needs adult, and we just started talking, and she couldn't believe.
Well, she started by saying she wanted to move to Texas because, she didn't. Colorado was.
I don't even remember what her main reason was.
Well, I'm sure it was political, but she also talked about how. She talked about how the benefits were pretty good, but she just didn't like.
Well, the cost of living, or she was saying
there was a lot of things, and so she heard Texas had a low cost of living. But when we told her about these things, she was like, "Oh, I can't do that."
She was like, "Oh, I get paid $3,000 a month to care for my adult.
I get paid $3,000 to care for her child,
to care for her adult son, and he gets
benefits on top
of that, and he gets because he has autism. They have a fund that she gets money for autism and this and that. And Cason is, if you're going to say worse or better, he's much higher functioning. Like, he can have a job. Now, it's not like going to support him enough, but he can do way more than Cason can do.
Yeah.
In fact, I want to say he even drove.
Yeah, he was I think he actually drove Uber.
No, that was her other son.
Oh, okay.
He did, but I think he did drive, like small. And just you and I are in the back seat, and she's talking about this, and we're like,
he's getting all those.
You're
benefits?
getting $3,000 a month to care for him. And we were saying, how long did it take for you to do this and that? She goes, it was 30 days.
Yeah.
And then he's like, well, in Texas, the waivers, 20 to 25 years. And she was like, what? She couldn't believe it. Could not believe it.
Yeah. And again, if you're not a part of this community, you're not only lucky, you maybe deep down inside you say this isn't my problem. And, I wish I could say the same thing.
Right.
But the reality is this is Cason's problem. We are his guardians, and therefore we have to take care of him. This goes beyond our problem.
Right.
And
what we talked about in the last episode, what was so frustrating, where I'm like, my big question is, why can't we have leaders? Why as a society is it okay to not want to care and help those that have disabilities and their families? Why is it like that? And why is some states it's more acceptable to help those with disabilities than others? It makes no sense to me.
Yeah, well, I also it's one thing to say, hey, there's too many programs and too much money is spent, but to be going out of your way to prevent people from getting basic basic benefits, I really don't get that.
I don't either.
The reality is it should not be this hard.
Nope.
It should not require someone in Cason's situation to have to get denied, file an appeal, and wait a year and still feel like, well, if you're asking all the same information, how am I supposed to expect that I'm going to get a different answer?
Right. Nothing's changed.
Which means we have to appeal again?
Well, no, the next time.
We have to hire a lawyer now.
Have to hire a lawyer.
So if we hire a lawyer to make this happen, do we get reimbursed legal fees?
Nope.
No.
No, the lawyer then, the next step, if we truly get denied again, then we have to hire the lawyer we have to go in front of a judge.
Yeah.
With Cason.
Right.
And again, if they're looking for fraud, I don't know where the fraud would be in any of this with Cason. Well, it's just, the whole thing is just so wrong, and special needs families have way too much other things in their life to be dealing with, and health issues and school issues and all kinds of stuff. This and guardianship should just not be it. In the fact that when you do guardianship, a judge has said Cason is incompetent.
Yes, there is already a judge who has said Cason is incompetent to take care of himself. The very fact that we have guardianship papers should be enough to get Social Security.
Yep. And the guardianship, like I said, every year we have to renew it. And we have to fill out a form. What doctors did Cason see? Any changes in medical? Any changes in medicine? And again.
It just feels like a big formality.
It does.
Because all we do is ship that thing in, and then a few weeks later we get new papers. No one calls us to follow up on anything.
No, well, the Collin County Clerk's office, whatever. I mean, they do. They look over it and read and stuff. But since he was 18, he's 23. Nothing's changed.
Yeah, I mean, we update things, but it's basically the same.
And it's a legal document. We had to go in front of a judge, and he had to see Cason. Remember we've talked about that the sheriff came and subpoenaed him, or then we had the county sent out their investigator, and they've interviewed him to determine, he's not able to. Right.
So various members of the state of Texas have already declared him incompetent.
And we still are fighting this.
Yeah. Well, okay. So thank you for giving us this opportunity to vent about this, because we needed to. I hope that anyone who is going through this as well, leave your comments. Let us know how you're dealing with it. But I think the big lesson here is, if you're in this situation, you should record your meetings. You should record whatever part of your meetings you can. And I don't even care if you tell them you're doing it. I mean,
no,
you should do it.
And just keep fighting, because I know the consultant that we were working with to help us with all this said, Social Security hopes that we just give up.
Right.
That's really what they're hoping. They're going to keep asking for information, and they're going to keep dragging this on, and they're just hoping that we're going to think, this is just not worth it. We're not going to do it anymore.
The comparison that I make is, it's like an extended warranty.
Yeah.
You buy an extended warranty, and then when you actually try to use it, it's such a pain in the butt that you just ultimately don't use it. That seems to be the way the state of Texas treats SSI benefits.
Yeah.
And they're just hoping we quit.
Yeah, well, and we're not going to.
We're not gonna. So. Okay. So that'll do it for this week. I'm Jeff.
And I'm Kim.
And that's Specialness. We'll see you next week.